Good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us again on this lovely sunny day for the Summer of STEM virtual workshops with Thales. We're delighted to have you joining us today, and my name is Maria, for those of you that haven't seen me before, and I'll be helping and guiding you through this exciting session. Before we get started, I just wanted to share a few housekeeping rules. Please note that this session is recorded, so the content will be reviewed and then shared where appropriate. If you have any questions throughout the workshop, please use the chat function and share your emojis and reactors to show appreciation for our guest speakers. And we'll do our best to answer those questions throughout the session, or we will have a designated Q&A at the end. Today's workshop is the third in our series of 4 STEM challenges and workshops, and they're designed to help you explore real-world challenges, understand more career pathways, and how to apply science, technology, engineering and maths skills to your future. So we're excited to kick off this journey with you, see the creativity and the innovation and the enthusiasm that you are bringing to the challenges. So thank you, and thank you for joining us. So let's get started. Thanks, James.
Good morning. Hopefully you can hear me. As Maria said, welcome to the third session out of our 4 sessions of Thales' Summer of STEM. Really excited to introduce you to another brand new colleague this week who's focusing on software. My name is James Mackay, and I had the pleasure of being the head of STEM for Thales in the UK. For those of you who haven't joined us before, you may have seen some of the work that we undertake in the video as you were waiting to come into the call. But Thales really is the largest technology company you've probably never heard of, and we work on things from submarines all the way up to satellites. So the chances are that you've interacted with us without knowing it. If you have a bank card or a SIM card, if you've been lucky enough to be on a plane, then our technology will have touched your life. We work in a range of different sectors, all the way from security and defense, aerospace and space, and cyber and digital identity. And this year we have been lucky enough to receive some accolades for the work that we do in terms of supporting our people as a workplace. So we have been featured on the top 100 apprenticeship employers of 2026 and within Glassdoor's best places to work. So finding out a little bit more about day-to-day within the company, I'm going to pass over to my colleague Addy, who's going to lead you through what her life looks like working at Thales. So I'm really excited to hear all of the insights. So Addy, over to you.
Thank you so much, James. So hi everyone, I'm Addy and I'm a software engineer working in UWS, so that's underwater systems. If you joined last week, I believe you heard from Julian, who also works in underwater systems. So we deal with anything underwater. So I'll go on to a bit about me. If I could have the next slide, please. Thank you. So I'm a software engineer during the day, outside of work. So I'm a rower. So on the left is a photo from a grueling 170-kilometer row that we did as a club a couple of years ago to celebrate our 170th anniversary. Yes, it was a very long day. It went on from roughly like 4 a.m. until 10 p.m., but that was great. I live with my boyfriend and my wonderful cat, Mork, who is in the bottom right. He's deaf, so if you hear any very vocal cats today on the call, that is him. But he's very cute and a great co-worker. I love going to the zoo. I just love animals, if you can't tell by the way that I spoke about Mork. Working in the north means that I get to go to Chester Zoo a lot. For my birthday, I've just gotten a membership to the zoo. It's great. Love to go. And I live in arguably the best city in the world, Liverpool. So I work in Manchester during the day, but I come home to lovely Liverpool in the evening. So with that, I'll bring you on to a day in the life of a software engineer. Thank you so much. So software engineers, we write code to turn ideas into reality. So if you see this image on the left, this is something that Thales has helped develop for planes. So all of the screens that you see here, I am not very up to date with my plane knowledge, so I don't really know what's going on. But everything here, this is something that Thales has helped to develop. So everything here has had a software engineer working on it. So we'll have software engineers working on making the display, so those pretty colourful maps and that, making them into something readable, because we won't just automatically have it in this nice format. There'll also be engineers who work on getting the data from a source, so perhaps a predefined map, a radar, real world data, and they'll work on processing that into human readable displays. So that's kind of the area I work in, just not on planes, on stuff under the water. We'll also have some engineers who write tests to mimic real life situations and assess performance. And actually, that's where my expertise is at the moment. So before Thales, I did this for banking. So I would mimic scenarios sending money across the world for the services that we made that did that. And we would perform some tests in the real world as well. So we do use actual banking systems, and you'd send a penny and make sure that it would get to the right place. What else do we do though? So we build all of this amazing software, but it's not 100% of the day just sat there coding. We also meet with clients to see how our software is going to be used in the real world. So if we continue with this example of the plane stuff on the left, that would be pilots, potentially air traffic control, radar experts, people who are actually going to be impacted by this, and tell us what they need, and they'll be able to say like, oh, that's fantastic, we need this edit making. And then software engineers will also work with them to make sure that it gets integrated properly and it works as expected.
Sorry
Yeah.
to interrupt. We've had a question about what type of coding you might use in your role as well.
Fantastic. So in terms of languages that I use at the moment, the main languages are Java, C#, C++, and a very, very old one called Ada. But across everywhere, I think Java and Python are the most popular ones that I've used. So I think Python, I hear that lots of people do interact with in school. So yeah, Python is fantastic. I personally use Python for most of the testing scripts because it's really easy to mimic the real life situations as well. Do you have a secret code too? Sorry, that's a really interesting one. There isn't a secret language, but there is, if you look into the topic of encryption, lots of places will use some encryption to encrypt their data to make sure that it stays secret. And that's a really interesting topic as well. So please do ask any more questions. I love talking about the coding languages, and yeah, Python is personally my favorite because it's just nice and readable. So alongside writing all of our code during the day, we have lots and lots of meetings, whether that's to do with the work that we're doing that day, catching up with colleagues, or reflecting on the work that we've done to make improvements. These are always fun. We have themed meetings. I've introduced those. So we've had a James Bond one. We've had the Olympics. We have lots of fun ones. And we've also made sure that our recent meetings, the reflection ones, are timed well because the ice cream van comes into the business park around 20 minutes into our meeting. So we can go and have a group ice cream together for our meetings, which is great. Also, just in our days, our hours are very flexible. So typically people start anywhere between 7 a.m. and 10 a.m. I personally choose 7 because that means that I get to go home at 3 and it gives me plenty of time to relax. So I usually go to the gym afterwards. I have a lovely spa at my gym, or I'll row, meet up with friends, or teach. So I do teach coding in the evenings. And if anyone's curious of the languages, that's Python and Java mainly. I do use a bit of SQL as well. If anyone's familiar with that, that's to deal with databases. Thank you so much. So I'll move on to the next slide, that is working environment. So another great thing about software engineering is the working environment. So some days I work from home, which means I can change my desk to suit me or my cat, as you can see on the right. But other days I work in the office, and as someone who worked from home for several years solely, I actually prefer being in the office now. I get to catch up with colleagues. We have a technical brew. We have brew at 2 as well. So we make sure that we have scheduled in coffee breaks. We also go for coffee or lunch together. Sometimes we have team lunches together at a local restaurant too. Every month we have this thing in Stockport called Foodie Friday, where we'll all go out and have drinks and tea together. And again, finishing at 3 means I get plenty of personal time. Like tomorrow, I'll get to go find somewhere good to watch the solar eclipse. Don't forget about the solar eclipse. Yeah, very good work-life balance. So with that, I will talk about how I got here, so my education and life before becoming an engineer. So if I could have, thank you so much. So before becoming an engineer, I tried a few things out. I never thought I would be a software engineer when I was in your situation. So at GCSE and A levels, I took a combination of science and maths. I tried engineering, history. For one day, I tried politics at A level. That was not for me. And my favourite subject, which was art, I took that at GCSE and A level. But then I ended up doing mathematics at university, so that was my final degree, bachelor's in maths. But I did try a few other things out. I tried mathematics with oceanography, but this was a bit too much time at sea for my liking. I did have to go to Wales to measure pebbles. I know that there is a good reason for that, but I didn't quite enjoy that. So yeah, just changed to mathematics. But alongside all of this, I tried a few jobs. So gym receptionist for a while. I did 2 years in banking customer service and complaints. So I was working from home. That was before COVID, so before it was cool. I worked in a COVID vaccination centre, but I don't like needles, so that wasn't the job for me. I also worked in parking ticket disputes for local councils, and that was actually really fun, but didn't make me very popular, even coming home to my family. They were not too much of a fan of that. And whilst finishing my degree, I was a bartender, which was also really, really fun. Lots of these jobs have allowed me to work with people, which has been great, the general public, whereas my current role isn't so much, which is why I really enjoy getting to talk with customers and see how the software is going to be used.
So Addy, that has stimulated quite a few questions about your GCSE and option choices. So we've got a question from Benjamin asking, did you pick computing for your year 10 options?
No, I did not think that I was going to use computing ever. So my options were engineering, art, and history. We just picked the 3 at our school and then had some compulsory ones. But no, I didn't touch IT until after university. At our school, we didn't have coding ones available, so it was just more like focusing on Microsoft Office. But no, I didn't know that there was really a career feasible at that point using coding.
And we've got Abdul Hadi asking how long you've been working as a software engineer.
4 years.
4 years. And Amber, which sciences did you do at A level?
Physics. I did do physics and chemistry. This was back when you did 4 subjects in your first year and then cut it down to 3. And I didn't get very good grades at chemistry. It just doesn't make sense to me. So only stuck with physics.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the questions. And with that, I'll move on to the next slide, please. So a challenge that I overcame, and this is actually what ended up getting me into software, because you're probably thinking at the moment, like, I know someone was asking, did you choose coding? No, how did I get here? So for my final year university project, I got landed with the topic of maths of image processing and recognition. And I quickly realized that this was building code to classify handwriting. The only issue was, as you're aware now, I didn't know how to code. So I'd never taken IT at school. I'd not done it throughout my degree. I was very focused on some pure mathematics. This wasn't one of my options at all. So I had to do something about it. So I had a look online for just some free courses on how to code. So I took 2 courses in the evening in my final year of my degree. And these were in SQL and Python. Didn't choose them for any particular reason. They were just the ones that popped up. And it worked. So I got a first in the project and in my degree. And straight after that, I became a volunteer instructor myself, so teaching beginners whilst I still was one. I also have omitted here that I did try a coding course in my first year of university. So this was 5 years before this. I tried Introduction to Web Development, and I lasted 2 sessions. I was like, cannot do this. This is not for me. So make sure to not rule things out off of one little experience. But yeah, so I did try it a few years earlier.
And Addy, I probably have a question about that. So my background's computing as well, so I'm passionate about the subject. What is it about the introduction to web development that you think that was different from SQL and Python? Was it the language that we're using, or was it the kind of the more user interface element of it that you struggled with?
It was the user interface element of it. So it's strange that I loved art, but then when it came to the design part of coding, I was like, oh, this is too confusing. How do you know what people exactly want? Yeah, I just found it a little bit confusing and not very straightforward. I like maths because there is just a nice correct answer at the end, whereas with web development, it just felt a little bit too nuanced. So I just didn't vibe with it.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I will move on to the next slide, which is my journey in software engineering. So from first job to software engineer. So my first proper job after doing a few boot camps, so it was pretty much January through to August. Alongside my degree, I was doing some upskilling to get into coding. And then I landed a job at Currency Cloud, which is Visa is the parent company, so like Visa cards. And I was a software test engineer there. I got promoted within 10 months, which is really great. And we built software that moves money instantly across Singapore and the US. So those are the projects that I worked on. And that was really, really cool. So it was helping develop the software, but also testing it. So that's where the things like the penny tests came in. I have all the time since taking my first course in January 22, I've been a teacher. So I became a Code First Girls ambassador. I started teaching with them and then became a lead instructor. So helping the next person do what I did. So courses I've taught. I currently teach these 16-week-long boot camps in software engineering, which is Python and SQL. I also teach Java and the data science part, which is also Python. So very Python heavy. And that actually led me into my role at Thales. So it was a thing through Code for Skills, which is where I ended up at Thales. So I'm now a software engineer here. So reached through that network that I helped build, so Code for Skills, which is great to come full circle. And I've been here for about a year and a half now, and I intend to stick around for a lot longer. So 3 things to remember through my journey. So study what excites you. So I studied art, as you saw, at GCSE and A-level, just because I loved it. I really loved it. My school at the time were trying to push people to do some different subjects, and it was quite a small school, and I was getting higher grades. So they actually took me off art twice, once to do French at GCSE, and then to do chemistry at A-level. And I had to get my mum involved and to fight for me to do art. But study what excites you. It will all work out in the end. Wiggly paths are normal. So although it sounds quite standard that I went into maths and then software engineering, there were a few career breaks, which is where I did those jobs in banking, in customer service. So that's absolutely fine. It will lead you to where you want to be. So software engineering, as you saw, I kind of fell into that. Couldn't be happier. But also ask for help. I wouldn't have gotten a first in my degree if I didn't ask for that help in coding, because I wouldn't have known where to go. So that's me from this side. Do we want to, do some questions?
Yeah, they've been flying through it, if that's okay. So do you feel that teaching or the side hustle made you stand out as an applicant when you were applying for new roles?
Definitely. It is something that's been asked in all of the interviews since, like, tell me about being a CFG ambassador or tell me about your teaching. And it is something that people are always quite happy about. I think showing that you are interacting with the community always helps with doing things like networking, going to events. That really helps. But if you can give back and teach people, it's also really great. I don't know if anyone's heard of it as the Feynman technique. So that is so Richard Feynman. It's a lot more in depth than this, but it's basically to learn a new skill, learn it, teach it, and then you'll learn it better. And I found that definitely helped me as well, to adopt the languages, because I obviously started teaching very quickly after learning the subjects. But yes, it has helped me stand out as an applicant.
Thank you. We've got a question from Francis as well asking, what type of things do you program?
Oh, so I actually have on one of the later slides a bit about some of the things that I have built in my spare time. So I don't know if we want to wait for that or if I can talk about them now. We'll wait for that.
Yeah, let's wait for that. That's perfect. And what courses did you have to do after university to become a software engineer? I think it might be a good opportunity just to talk about that Code First Girls as well, Addy, if that's okay with you, unless you're covering it later.
No, absolutely. I'll talk about it now. So yeah, I did these 2 introductory courses. It was 8 hours worth over 8 weeks. So that was Intro to Python, Intro to SQL. Then I did something called the CFG degree, which is a 16-week-long evening bootcamp. It's quite intense, but they teach you to become a software engineer from scratch. So I actually did that in data science, and that also taught me Python and SQL. And those are the only courses that I did that were necessary to get me into my role. One course that I do recommend to my students now, though, is it's quite intense. But if you've heard of Harvard University, their computer science module became so popular that you can access it online, and it's called the CS50, and they have some other offshoots of it. I even now find it quite technical, but it is a fantastic, maybe in a few years' time, a fantastic course to do in your spare time, and that teaches you pretty much everything that you need to know as a beginner as well. And they have an AI one, web development, cybersecurity, some fantastic courses. But yeah, Code First Girls have online resources that you can access. They've got an online portal now as well for, I think they do Java, C#, Python, SQL, and all the lovely web development things of JavaScript and all that jazz.
Thank you. And then we've got a question. So how long did it take you to become a software engineer from your first job?
As in, first job not being a software engineer.
I think so. So when you entered the world of work, how old were you? And then from that point, how long until you became a software engineer?
Okay, so I'll just briefly talk through timelines. So 2017 started university, had some normal uni jobs in there, like ambassador for the maths department. Had a break in university 2018 to 2020. So in between there, I worked full time. And then I actually kept working full time when I went back to university because COVID allowed for that. Which was a little bit silly. So then I finished my degree in 2022, which is when I became a software engineer. So I finished my A-levels 2017, became a software engineer in 2022.
Thank you. And then I think we'll probably save the rest of the questions for the Q&A section, if that's all right. Perfect.
That's fantastic. Thank you. So I'll move on to the next slide, please. So some more fun stuff. Holidays as a software engineer. Mine aren't as fun as everyone else's. If you talk to some software engineers, they normally take about a month out each year and have some really extravagant holidays, touring around like an entire continent. But my most recent ones, so really lucky to have been to Cyprus a couple of years ago and do a lot of touring around the island. And most recently, only a couple of months ago, had a couple of weeks in Iceland, which was fantastic, getting to tour around all of the waterfalls, do all the typical touristy things, go to the Blue Lagoon, and really explore it. So software engineers love to go on these big exploration holidays, and they love to talk about it as well. I'm sure you see it all over their LinkedIns. Thank you so much. So I'll move on to the next slide, which is trips with Thales. So as a software engineer, especially working for such a big company like Thales that does so much, you get lots of nice trips to see all of the amazing things that are outside of your department. So lots of my colleagues have been to things down south to see all of the boats and stuff. There's also a place called Barrow-in-Furness, which has submarines. People get to go up to Scotland, over to Australia to see some of the things. I haven't done that yet, but most recently I got to do some volunteering at RAF Cranwell, which is in Lincolnshire, and they have this really cool high G facility, which is training pilots for high G scenarios. We got to witness someone getting spun up to, I think it was like 8G or something, and they were saying like their vision starts going, and Thales have this training facility to help pilots cope with that. So that was really, really cool. And I'll move on to another trip that I've had, which was a conference in Brighton. So this might not sound so glamorous to those of you that live down there, but to me, Brighton sounds really cool. And they have a really cool testing conference in Brighton that's held there every year by the Ministry of Test. And I got to go with Thales last year, meet thousands of people from the industry. So there's people that travel from all over the world to go to this conference, get to listen to talks about like what's new and upcoming, like testing AI and just any new software, what's going on in the world, and meet with fellow testers in the industry. I've also gone to quite a few events in London. So there's some in the Excel that are just like women in business. Karen Brady has a really cool women in tech and business expo. Get to go to some really cool conferences and meet people in the industry. So I'll move on to my next slide, which is outreach and recognition. So I'm also really lucky to have a great coding life outside of work. So I'll talk through my projects and then I'll talk through the bits that are on the slide, just because someone asked about it earlier. So most recent projects, it's normally just solving problems in my personal life and my family's. We all know that families can be very pushy. So I've made, this is really fun, an error code searching app for someone who's a physical engineer. I've also done some scheduling apps for local sports club to save lots of manual work and just make things automated. I'm also reworking my maths project of handwriting recognition. So I'm building an app that will initially classify your input, so whatever you draw, and translate it to text, but using the maths that I did in my degree and writing it all from scratch. But then it's going to allow you to build a font out of your handwriting, which I think is really cool. And more fun things include a film picker, because me and my boyfriend really struggle to pick a film to watch. So we can each input at any time a film suggestion. And when we want a film, we ask it to pick one at random. But because I've built the application, I did put in some weighting on it that makes it less likely to pick his suggestions, and anything that has a Star Wars related title will not get picked, because I'm not a Star Wars fan. So you can code it to your advantage. But some outreach and recognition. So to date, I have taught 2,859 students through Codefest Girls. So yeah, teaching since April 2022. And some of the teaching courses are listed here, mentioned a little bit already. And it's great to see in the chat that some of you are familiar with these languages, especially Python. I've also done some technical content creation, so making the courses, so software engineering, and then the Java testing and deployments course. I've also won a few awards for women in tech. So there was one last year that was Tech Women 100 and some diversity awards, which is really great recognition. And you should always put yourself out there to nominate yourself for these sorts of awards to make sure that you get yourself known, because it really does help you as an applicant. And on the right is a couple of my computer setups that I've had. I'm sure any of you who have a setup at home, a gaming setup, for example, know that you will change it very frequently because you'll just get bored of it. But thank you. That's me on that slide. So I'll move on to now Q&A.
Perfect. Just before we go forward, I think you have sparked some outrage with the Star Wars comment. And I am equally outraged if anyone in the chat is shocked by that, because I am an advocate for it.
So when I made the app, I hadn't yet watched Star Wars, and I have since watched them, and I quite enjoyed them. But I would rather things like The Devil Wears Prada be elected over that. So maybe I'll just reduce the weighting so it's less likely.
Fair. Version 2 coming shortly then. So just before we go on to the general questions, I think one thing that we haven't quite talked about, but is really, really important for industry, is women in industry. And so you have talked about receiving some accolades in terms of the work that you've done as a woman in industry. What advice would you give to anyone out there at the moment considering going in, but might be a little bit put off by that male weighting? Because we know in STEM professions at the moment there is an uneven balance, and although that's changing and absolutely should change, what advice would you give to someone considering it, or that might be a little bit put off by that in terms of thinking about it as a career?
So it might sound a bit counterintuitive, but so what's helped me is finding some men who can, what's the term, not sponsor you. I think that's quite a popular term instead of mentor. So I have been lucky to work in workplaces where I've had peers who have sort of spoken up for me, which isn't the best, but it is good to have those people who will speak for you when you're not in the room. So when I got promoted in 10 months, my work wasn't necessarily being recognised on its own. And a colleague actually spoke up and said, like, hey, Addie's done this great work. Why are you not recognising it? And having people who will echo how amazing you are is really good. So but also you need to make sure you speak up for yourself. So highlight your work. There was a content creator on Instagram. She's an ex-Google developer. She's really, really great. And she says, like, just shout about everything you've done. So if you do something that you might think like, oh, that's kind of small, shout about it. Like, send an email out, be like, hey, just want to highlight to everyone that I've done this really great work. But also you might forget to do that. So keep something called a brag doc. You might have heard of it before, which is just a document where you just put everything good you've done. So today, if I go and write a piece of code, I'm like, oh, that was really good, I might write about it. So just keep a little document, try and have some filters on there, but then you will see like, oh, I have delivered this piece of work, or I got this piece of feedback, and you'll be able to speak about how amazing you are. Because one thing, I won't claim to know the stats anymore, but I think men are typically a bit more comfortable speaking about how great they are in comparison to women. And also, when there's a good stat on looking at job descriptions, women are far more likely to be put off if they don't meet 100% of the criteria, whereas men are more likely, I think, if they meet like 50% of the criteria. So hopefully keeping a brag doc will help you realize how amazing you are, but just go for every opportunity and just really talk about yourself. Don't think like, oh no, that looks like I'm getting too big for my boots. No, just say how amazing you are, and people will then see it.
Great, thank you. And then as a female in engineering, how does Thales support you?
So we have some really great members of staff who will, so for all of the opportunities that I've had, so the Tech Women 100, I've been able to get the funding to go to the event for that. I get funding to go to, if I'm like, oh, there's a Women in Tech event, but it's in London. Oh, cool, you can have the funding to go to that and we'll sponsor you to go. So just really supportive of anything that I want to do in that field. But also we have a really great Women in Thales network, that we have some great events put on. We have reps per site, and we have some webinars, and it's also just a chance for everyone to meet up and we can talk about like, oh, I've been having this issue, or oh, I don't think I'm getting enough recognition, or there's not enough opportunities, and you can all speak amongst yourselves. Then we have sponsors. So I think you might be hearing from someone next week who actually was quite involved with the Women's Network at Cheadle. So yeah, the Women's Network is fantastic.
Brilliant. And one of the questions that's coming up is, what university did you go to?
So I started at University of Liverpool, but then due to moving back home, I then finished my degree at University of Lincoln, and I'm now doing a master's through Thales at the University of Northumbria. So got to try a few dotted around.
And what's the master's in?
Digital technical specialist with software engineering. So it's business and computer science. So finally doing some formal education with computer science.
Brilliant. And then I'm just going to give an opportunity for anyone to pop any other questions into the chat. If you are sat there thinking, oh, actually, I know what question, I don't have any further questions, but it'd be interesting to see if using the React function, if you have been exposed to Python in your school, just put a little reaction in there. Yeah, so I can see some coming through. Great. So people have got some knowledge of Python as well. And then hopefully if you're one of those people sitting there going, oh, actually, I'm doing computer science as a GCSE, you'll have that SQL exposure as well. So lots of the things that we've talked about today overlap. Oh, that's a great question. So Sahir asks, rate software engineering from 1 to 10. Where would you place it? And we're going to say 1 is the lowest in terms of job satisfaction and 10 is the highest.
I would say 10. I've never been genuinely happy to go to work. I love software engineering just in my normal life, as you can see. Any problem, like, I'm going to write some code for that. But honest, I don't get Sunday scaries anymore. So on a Sunday night, I'm like, oh, can't wait to go in and talk to this colleague and do this piece of work. Even if I have a bad day at work, I'll rant about it in work and I'm still happy to be there. So the career of software engineering, I would say 10, but I feel I'm a bit biased.
Brilliant, thank you. And Amber has asked, what made you get into software engineering in the end?
So the teacher that I had for, I think it was SQL, she was a Google developer and she just seemed to have a really cool way of life and she's a really cool lady. And then I thought like, oh, it just seems kind of cool. I was facing going into academia. That's all I had lined up, or being a maths teacher. And when I was just doing more of the coding courses, I just thought, this is really fun. This is a growing industry. It's going to be very different day to day. But also it was more the way of life. I was like, oh, I really like the sound of lots of people take sabbaticals. I like the sound of having that time box day and building solutions for new pieces of software. So I've got a colleague who I think he's worked with Thales in a similar sort of team since the 90s. And he talks about like all the different huge projects that he's worked on. Like that's just really cool, having that impact on the real world as well. So just cool projects.
Brilliant, thank you. And then just asking from 2 people, the type of things you actually end up programming in work. So websites, games, apps or games. And another great question, which I'm going to say is our final one because I'm conscious of time, is do you tend to talk to colleagues who don't work in software engineering in Thales as well? So 2 questions there for you, sorry.
Hope I'll remember them both. So the first one, I build actual desktop applications. So we have like, it's not like a normal Windows or Mac. We have like our own operating system and we build applications that live on there. But we also do some web applications as well. But the front ends aren't that pretty, as you could see from that picture earlier on. They're not that pretty, but that's because the design is less important than the processing of the data underneath. And the second question, talking to colleagues who aren't in software engineering. Yes, mainly through the women's network, because we have on our floor, it's mainly software engineering, but going to the brewery, to the coffee room, do you get to just chat to some people because it's just good to just go in there and just linger and be like, oh, how's your day been? And then you'll just make friends. So I made a friend with a lady. We had to queue for the toilet the other day. Queuing for a ladies' toilet in the software engineering department. It made us very happy. And chatting to her, and she's from a different project, someone I'd never normally talk to. So yeah, just get to yap to people on site, different people.
Brilliant, thank you. And Maris has actually given a really great answer, but Maris, I'm going to be really problematic and say he's asked, how does AI affect your job right now, and how do you think it will in a few years' time? And that is a great little segue for me to highlight that next week we actually have another female engineer joining us who specializes in AI. So they will be absolutely primarily placed to talk about that topic and how it might impact jobs and roles in the future. Now we have around 4 minutes left, so we're going to move on to the final wrap up of the call. And Adi, thank you so much for your input there. It's time for our weekly challenge, and I just want to talk about the submissions that we had last week. So we picked 3 out which really stood out. So a real congratulations to Amber Ben and Sahir, and we were really impressed by the submissions that you sent to us, focusing on drain docks, stopping litter from storm drains going into the wider ocean, which was fantastic. And actually, Amber, if you were here, I spoke about this with an actual geographer who was absolutely stunned and delighted by the idea. So congratulations there. Ben was focusing on how we protect underwater data cables across the ocean. Again, some really fantastic ideas. And Sahir's roundup on the importance of coral reef and protecting them were phenomenal. So congratulations. If your entry is shown on this slide, you will receive Amazon vouchers for us for your entry. So a massive congratulations. And thank you for sharing your ideas and innovations with us. This week, we're going to ask you to think about how digital tools can make everyday life easier, fairer, or more enjoyable. So it's up to you. Pick a problem that you care about and design an app or a software idea that solves it. You can show your idea as a poster, a presentation, or any creative format that works for you. And we're going to ask you to email that to Thales@school-outreach.com. Addy, really, really briefly, are there any top tips that you would give to anyone who is looking to submit this week?
I would say just start working on an idea. Don't ponder too much on it. I have a problem of thinking about it for like weeks on end. Just start getting stuff down, and then your idea will evolve.
Amazing, great, thank you. So yeah, just starting whacking it down, and it will evolve over time. That's brilliant. So if you are interested in a career at Thales, please do use the QR code if you want to find out more. We are in the low season for our campaigns of recruitment, but you can go onto that top QR code to find out a bit more about the company and a bit more about what entry requirements might look like at different stages of entry, be that after GCSE, A level, or degree. If you are thinking that I'd love to do a little bit of work experience, we offer a virtual work experience, which is a great thing to put on your CV or any application forms, which you can complete using the SpringPod platform and the QR code beneath. But finally, next week we have an AI specialist joining us, and I'm really excited to find out a little bit more about AI in today's context, because it absolutely is a topic that everyone is talking about at the moment. So if you want to find out what it looks like working in AI in a really technical industry, then please do sign up using the QR code that is on your screen. Addy, a massive thank you for joining us today. It's been really interesting finding out more about your role, and I'm sure that everyone shares enthusiasm. I definitely want to have a look at your film picker, and I wonder if your skills can map my terrible handwriting, so I'll be following that up with you later. So thank you for joining us. As always, we will share this recording on YouTube if you want to come back and look at some additional details. If you've got a friend that might be interested, ping it across to them, and then hopefully we will see you next week with some even more fantastic submissions for our challenge. Have a lovely weekend. Thanks for joining.